It's a text. It is Monday, the 30th day in the month of January, 2017. As you battle the congested city streets and drive home traffic, we have cloudy skies today, 75 degrees in the nation's capital, low tonight of 70 degrees. And we thank you so much for joining us on the drive home. I'm Steve McKinney. This is Hard Copy. We're brought to you today by Mount Tabor Inspiration, the Ministry of Tourism, Hadji's, your everything store, Rule 50 celebrations, Commonwealth Bank, the new debit card, the PLP Empowerment Convention, that's over and done with, the Vanilla Spices and Manufacturing Limited, Cool Tech, the air can do experts, and Clean Insurance for comprehensive coverage, Superwash, open 24/7, Bank of the Bahamas, the Bank of Solutions, Superbound Markets, the Show Bistro on Nassau Street, Advantage Insurance and Birds Avenue, Ron's Electric Road, Executive Printers on Jerome Avenue, the People's Movement, they're having that big meeting tomorrow at VCPU Hall, and the McKinney Media Group for the best results in advertisements and public relations. You can call us today on Hard Copy, 325-0235 Follow us on the World Wide Web at peace1075.com, 970. On TuneIn Radio around the world, iPad, iPhone, any Android, you'll get us. Follow us on Facebook, Hard Copy, and on Twitter, Hard Copy Bahamas. So we are back in the saddle today, and of course, that's after a very rough and interesting weekend. But of course, today we're here and we're talking with the one and only Franklin Campbell. You may know the name. I'm sure you do because you've seen his big posters all over the place, especially down that area in the Southern Shores. And Mr. Campbell is one who has been doing a number of things in that community, as well as doing a number of things on the national scene. He's a former policeman, and he was way at the top of the ranks, and certainly he has now entered into the political arena with the Free National Movement, and as a result of that, he plans to bring a lot of his skills to that particular party, and hopefully they will win the government of the Bahamas, and a lot of his ideas will be implemented. And so we welcome him here today on Hard Copy, just to make sure that we are talking with the people who, in fact, want to make a difference, and the people who believe that they can make a difference, and the people who people are talking about. So let me just get that straight. They're talking about this man, and so I wanted to say, well, who is this fellow? Let me just find out for myself. And since they've been talking about him, I bring him to talk to you today because maybe, I kind of desperate too, maybe he has some answers for crime. Maybe he has some answers for all the things that we are looking at that we can't seem to get a lid on. And anybody who is talking good sense in the Bahamas and who wants to do good for the Bahamian people, they get a big star in my book. And that's just the way it is. We have no time, friends. When I say maybe I'm desperate, I want you to get that picture now. We, the Bahamian people, have no time to play around. Okay? We've got to find the right people immediately if, in fact, your idea is to change things. There's no time for gesturing. And as a result of that, I'm talking with everybody. That's my commitment. I'm what I call myself a person who believes in making sure all sides get their say, an equal opportunity provider for those who want to come to the show and express themselves. But once I believe that you have something to say, I want to talk with you. And I believe today that Franklin Campbell has a whole lot to say because, he's the man of the Free National Movement in the Southern Shore area, and that's a very, very key area these days in the Bahamas, especially in New Providence. People have moved to the south. They've actually moved to the south. And the south, of course, is a high crime area these days, like you would expect. And we want to talk to Mr. Campbell about those things, other things, his beliefs, his hopes, his ambitions, all of those things here on this Monday. And so we begin our show by saying good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Good afternoon, Steve. Good afternoon, Bahamas. And I must say, before I get carried away, good afternoon to my 12-year-old daughter, Fia, who I'm sure is listening. At least I'm in trouble later. Let's correct one thing, Steve. It's Frankie.
Yeah.
K-I-E.
Not Franklin.
Not Franklin.
Frankie.
Frankie.
I got that, Frankie. You could not worry about it anymore. It's Frankie.
Very good.
Frankie Campbell, that's who I'm talking with today. And of course, we welcome him here to the show. What's it all about, Frankie Campbell? I mean, you have decided to throw in your lots with the Free National Movement. You have not decided to throw in your lot with the PLP or any of the other parties. You've decided that it's the Free National Movement. I want to ask you about that because you see, men like you who have the tenacity and the ability to go any which way because of your experience. Sometimes they line up with the people who are in the government of the Bahamas. They just do things that way. But you decided that you were doing something different. Talk to me about that.
I'll give you a little background, Steve. I come from very, very, very humble beginnings. When all of my friends claimed to be poor, I had to save up to be poor.
Understood.
I grew up understanding the need to be respectful of others and the things that belong to others. To this day, yes ma'am, no ma'am is part of my everyday speech, even to those who are younger than I am. I initially wanted to be an agronomist, and in 1983, I went to visit the Ministry of Agriculture, and I spoke with a gentleman who said to me, "It's very interesting that you come we're diversifying the economy, and we're happy that you've come. And he started to ask me some questions. And then he asked me my address. And I said, and he said, oh, Shirley. I wasn't politically in tune. I said, no, sir. I said, no, sir, Hawkinsville. He said, yes, that's in the Shirley constituency.
He said, he didn't get politics.
Yes. I said, oh, yes, sir. He says, well, okay, we will call you. And I walked out, and as I was about to step on the bus, I realized we never even discussed a phone contact. So how is he going to call me? And then he took me.
Well, that one on Frank.
Yes. And then I went home and I spoke with a good friend of mine who said, boy, I have to take you someplace to get this sorted out. And that evening, she took me to Chicken Unlimited on the building where Chicken Unlimited was on Mackey Street.
Yeah.
And it is only upon arriving that I realized I was at a Young Liberals meeting.
Is that right?
And I was like, well, why is this necessary? Why are we here? And she says, well, that's the only way you're going to get that thing you talked about.
My goodness.
And I said to her, I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you that I had another engagement. And I left. And there would have been several other experiences. I remember it would have been in 1976, leading up to the 77 election. I would have lived in Two Chop Corner. And they were going around giving ham and turkey Christmas time. I was sitting on the wall in front of the ad. The gentleman on the ground was given 2 hams or 2 turkeys, whatever they were. And he said to the guy in the truck, but you only gave me 2. There were 4 houses in the ad. And the guy on the truck said to him, that's all you need. It's only for those 2 houses there. Because you see, this house here, they're F&Ms, and the other house, they're Haitians, so they don't need any. Now, I must disclose that my mother is Haitian, and the house with the Haitians would be my house that he spoke about. And then I joined the Royal Bahamas Police Force because the agriculture thing didn't work out.
No.
And I'm transferred to Exuma, where I'm involved in the Pilots Club. I brought the first Junior Achievers Club to the Ellen Coakley High School. I became chairman of the Rollville Regatta. And then it's election time, 1992, in preparation therefore. And the incumbent, Mr. Smith, and I were good friends. But Lynn Holowesco, who was the F&M's candidate, she stopped at the station and she said, Mr. Campbell, I'm informed that you are very much engaged with the young people. What is it that I can do to help the young people? I said, ma'am, based on my connection with them, they could use some wholesome recreation activities and facilities. And she went ahead and she fixed up, I think, 1 or 2 basketball courts. And I got this call. After some discussions, I got a call on Wednesday, the 16th of June.
Remember the date?
Wednesday, the 16th of June, 1992, shortly before 4 p.m. Georgetown Police, Campbell, how may I help you? Campbell, 40 Campbell? Yes, sir. This is so-and-so, Assistant Commissioner so-and-so from Nassau. The Grandmaster is leaving tomorrow. Don't let it leave you, and don't let it leave your things.
You kidding me?
You ask, why the F&M? I wasn't sure that it was going to be the F&M, but I was damn sure it would never be the PLP.
My Lord, what a story. So you actually had a history of these kinds of, that's just not the group. That's just not the group because of your experiences. And I'm sure that as a result of that, you have become a very determined individual to make a difference. And that's where I want to go, because you talked about the fact that you have Haitian heritage through your mom.
Yes.
And a lot of people may look at that and say, what does that mean in the overall politics of the Bahamas and all this kind of thing? Because the Haitians are like this. They got all kinds of notions in their head about these kinds of things. But we all are a group of people who are from mixed bloods and that kind of thing. I want to ask you though, Frank, what made you, what brought about the resolve that you were going to do. I heard the stories about what you talked about, but what brought the resolve that you were going to get inside a group that's going to make a difference, and this group turned out to be it?
Notwithstanding the negative experiences that I would have had, I still had the benefit of being able to compare the two. You see, as a police officer, I saw the way policemen would have been treated under the PLP regime. And then I saw the way policemen would have been treated under the Free National Movement, who would have looked at the policemen as human beings. You know,
It's that serious.
you know, police officers would have worked at the cabinet minister's residence. They would work at Paul Adley's residence, and Paul Adley had two big Rottweilers, Alex and Leo. I remember them well. And they would terrorize the police officers. And then it would start raining, and someone would come out and put the dogs in the garage and leave the police officer in the rain. Or police officers would work at the Maynard's residence, and there was a small booth about 4 by 4, just wide enough to stand in, and they would have taken off the windows, claiming that if the officers are too comfortable, they will go to sleep.
Right, stop.
And many other instances. And then the Free National Movement came to power. And on August 1992, without being properly relieved, officers left the Finland residence in the rain. That's how happy they were to get away from there. But Mr. Ingram, on the other hand, he became prime minister, and he invited the officers who were attached to his residence against his will. He invited them to sit in his living room. And officers, there's coffee over there, and there's something over there. So the Free National Movement's philosophy towards policemen, and by extension, law enforcement officers, were that they are human beings too. So that started the comparison.
Yes, made that impression upon you.
Yes.
No question.
And as time went on, there were more and more and more comparisons. The question about accountability and transparency, not for a minute to suggest that the FNM was perfect along the way, but weighing the two in the balance, the FNM definitely came out ahead. You look at the various scandals in the first Christie administration. It was credit cards being used for carnal lusts. It was Korean boat scandals here and there, and nothing done. No one disciplined. And then you look at a situation where a minister is said to have signed a document a few days late that may have resulted in a local government having to be held again. And he's asked to excuse himself. And you make that comparison, and you say, philosophy is something that people can talk about.
Absolutely.
Anyone can talk about what their philosophy is, but when you look at the actual practice and what transpired, again, you would have to give the Free National Movement.
Yeah. So did you have, all your experiences are a sum total of all the things that happened, but did you have Frankie Campbell? And when did you realize that you were a person who was going to gun for the politics, for the political arena? Because people would want to know now that, okay, all of these things happened. Maybe he had this ambition long time to align himself and to go in there and make a difference. And if you're going to go in there and make a difference, what are those differences that you are planning to bring to the table? But first and foremost, when did you realize that you were harboring the idea of joining and being a part of the political arena in the Bahamas?
Well, take it back a little. I was 11 years old and my mother went out and she asked me to look after my 3 siblings. There were 4 of us at that time. And when she came back, she called me to the table and she says, "What's that?" And I said, "That looked like sugar, Mommy." And she grabbed me and she tanned me up. And after, all that passion wears off, the tradition was you come back and you say, "Mommy, I'm sorry, I won't do it again." And she said to me, "Do you think I beat you because I thought you went into the sugar?" I said, "Yes, ma'am." She says, "No, I beat you because I left you in charge and you didn't take charge. So from that point on, I felt the need to be responsible whenever I was placed in charge of something. The political thing would have been boiling and boiling and boiling, but I think it came to around the 2000 election. I really started to think about it, and I thought about it more in 2007. And my wife said to me, the children are still in school, you have no pension, we still have a mortgage.
Timing is everything, yeah.
And I backed off. In 2012, I had the privilege of serving in Port-au-Prince, Haiti in the embassy.
Yeah, you were an ambassador.
Well, I wasn't an ambassador,
You-
but in my third year, I carried out all the duties of the ambassador.
Yeah.
I was a charge d'affaires.
Yeah.
Because Mr. Scavallo, who was then the ambassador, was called to be placed in
That's
charge.
correct.
And
That's correct. That's
Yes.
correct. And that is because of your ability to speak fluent French, fluent Creole, that kind of stuff.
well, that is one of the
One of the
attributes
things.
that made it possible. But to run an embassy requires a lot more than
Of
being
course,
able to
of
speak.
course,
There was
of course.
the need
No
to
question.
manage the
Yeah, they may make it
affairs.
sound so frivolous.
Yeah. There was a budget of nearly $1 million. There's staff. There's knowing your country's position on various matters and knowing how to interact with other diplomats to ensure that the relationships remain intact. But it was an experience for me that caused me to realize that you need to go home and make a difference. I was asked a question one time from one of the other diplomats, Mr. Campbell, tell me what is the difference between the Bahamas and Haiti? And I paused to search for some philosophical, economical difference. And before I could respond, he said to me, it's simple, Campbell. One government decision. The difference between Haiti and the Bahamas is one government decision. And I said to myself, wow, he's correct. Because one poor decision could push us over the cliff.
No question.
One good decision could take us back into prosperity and sustainability, etc. And it was at that point that I realized, as much as they say it's a dirty game, I disagree. It's a game where there is some dirt only when the people become dirty.
Yeah,
Yes.
no question about it. And so the fact is that there you are now, you're running for the Free National Movement, and your ambition really is to do a number of things, I would take it. You see a lot of what is happening in Bahamas. You see, you make the comparison. You stood in the place of Haiti itself as a part of as a charge d'affaires in Haiti, and you saw the relationship. You know that there are a lot of things that could be better managed and corrected. I want to know some of those things because I do believe that when a person is able to see from the inside the things that are happening on the outside, others may not see that. And so someone like you may be, in fact, a good individual to bring scholarship to what the problems are in our own country. What are your thoughts?
Well, Steve, whenever I travel, I look for two things. I look for what we here can improve on based on what is happening in the other place. And I look for some of the things that we probably just need to stop doing. And my experience in Haiti was no different. I realized that by comparison, what makes us great in the Bahamas is the middle class, the existence of the middle class. In Haiti, we go from one extreme to the next, the very poor, the very rich,
Yes.
there's no middle class. And that is a real concern for us here in the Bahamas, here and now. The middle class is being squeezed. The middle class is being crushed. And if we allow the middle class to disappear, then we will become the same.
It'll be the same. It's like
Yes.
way up there and way down there.
Yes.
There's no middle ground.
Yes.
And so the middle class is that important.
And middle class is that important because it bridges the divide.
Yeah.
Just put it in this way. Imagine there is a big feast in a government house. And the rich and the elite are dining. And then right over the wall, down in Beantown, if the middle class is extracted, you will find the very poor whose mouths are dry, who are hungry and who are starving, and wanting to know why can't they be a part of, or at least enjoy some morsel of what is being shared up there. And then you have those feelings of animosity and anger and hostility starting to build up. And you see a lot of that now, because some people feel that they are unduly deprived, but they are unnecessarily disenfranchised.
Yeah.
So a lot of what is happening is as a result of this decreasing middle class or the poor wondering, when will it be our time?
Yeah. One of the things that's quite interesting as you talk with me today on Hard Copy, Frankie Campbell, is there are many people who have not gotten used to the idea as yet that we have a Haitian population in the Bahamas. And that Haitian population in the Bahamas, they believe, is increasing, and that they believe they may be taking over. Let me tell you, how do you come to terms with what is happening now in our diaspora in the Bahamas with these concerns and that of the fact that you are now of Haitian heritage by your mom, and you are here to make a difference. You want to. What does that difference entail? If you get my point. In other words, I'm sure that you born here, you grew up in the Bahamas, you went to school, everybody knows you, they saw your accomplishments. Is it a difficult thing to comprehend when Bahamians, when the average Bahamian is saying, well, I don't know with that, I don't know with this? You've gotten this, I'm sure. You've been able to deal with this before, even in all the prejudices that you saw in your journey through the police force and all that. I want to find out, what are your thoughts, generally speaking, about how you tackle and deal with these things and weigh them and make the best sense of them, and also be very sensitive to what is happening in our country?
Well, let me say this. I spent the greater portion of my adult life as a law enforcement officer. And I challenge anyone at any time to point out any incident where my loyalty to the Royal Bahamas Police Force, my loyalty to the Bahamas, my patriotism to the Bahamas may have come into question. And the reason why I wanted to make that clear is, in the execution of my duty, past, present, and future, my Haitian heritage is non-existent. The law must take place. The law must be seen. Justice must be seen as being served. And that is the platform that I stand on.
Understood.
As it relates to the presence of Haitians, and then there is this quote-unquote Haitian Bahamian, the numbers are of concern. The numbers of those who are illegal is of concern. And let me make it clear here and now that I in no way, form, or fashion support the presence of any illegal here in the Bahamas, be they Haitian, Jamaican, American, or otherwise. Then there is another group, that group that would have been born here, that group that is spoken about in the Constitution, that would at the age of 18 have certain rights, certain entitlements, etc., etc. They too have a situation that need to be addressed. For example, a child is 10 years old now. She's just finished primary school, Uriah McVeigh. She wants to go to D.W. Davis. That's the next step based on where she lives geographically. But there is a policy that prohibits her from being registered. It's not law. It's a policy that prohibits her from being registered. And for those who make the policy, they think it's wise. But my only concern is, if in 8 years, this 10-year-old child will have certain entitlements, would we not want her to be prepared academically
I see your point.
to be able to fit in when she exercises those rights? And there is where I think we need to strike a balance. There is where we need to remember that as a nation, we have signed on to various international treaties and the rights of the child and the rights of the child to education and et cetera, et cetera. So there is a human aspect and a humane aspect that needs to be considered. The second part is, if we continue to allow the existence of two parallel societies or communities, at some point they will meet. But if they exist apart from each other for too long, will they ever be able to coexist? So as a nation of people, we need to determine who should be here. Well, let's determine who shouldn't be here. Excuse those persons who shouldn't be here. Yes, excuse them. And then those who should be here, let us do what is necessary to cause them to assimilate, to cause them to be able to coexist, to cause them to fit in.
Understood.
To cause them to feel like stakeholders. You see, the young man this young lady that I'm speaking of, who can't go to school, et cetera, et cetera. If an immigration officer runs through her yard and says to her, you saw where any Haitians run through here, or you saw any illegal people? She's not inclined to help, because as far as she's concerned, well, you're talking about me too. Yeah. As far as she's concerned, well, you don't regard me as one of you. I'm not a part of, so it's really not my business. Yeah. So it's important. Secure our borders. That's another issue. Excuse those who don't have a right to be here, and then ensure that those who have a right are properly prepared. And there's room to create industry,
no question,
in our immigration policy. Imagine if we created a situation where there had to be a minimum standard for persons who are applying, and then you outsource that. You would create an industry with people who have to make sure that they meet the minimum academic, historical background, et cetera, to properly assimilate and integrate.
Well, I get the picture that you're saying. I think that you wrap it up in a good way. Succinctly, I think that what you have said is something food for thought. There's nothing new. We've heard from so many other people, including Dr. Miles Monroe, who spoke to these issues in great detail about what we have to do is come to terms with who we are, where we are, and the people here among us, especially those who, in fact, are born here. And they're going to grow up, and they're going to be a part of, or they are entitled to be a part of.
Yes.
And I don't think that we've come to terms with that, because what has happened is that we lump sum everybody into one category, and we say, you know, that's who they are, and there's no room in the inn for them. And people don't look at it carefully and analyze, well, who are these people who are here a long time and who were born here, and those who are just arriving here. And I'm sure that this is a major concern throughout, even in your particular party and for yourself.
Well, imagine this for a minute. A young man is born here. He's 12, 13 when his uncle sneaks in illegally, and his uncle is able to do certain things legally before he is able to.
Yeah.
That's an anomaly that needs to be addressed. The Free National Movement is of the position that we will secure the borders, we will remove humanely those who are illegal, and we will process those who have applied and are applying, to do that in a timely fashion so that a decision can be made. The next Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, Dr. Hubert Minnis, has indicated that he himself has no time to sit on a board that will decide citizenship unless there is a particular matter of contention. The position is that there should be a bipartisan independent body
Yes.
that address these matters that are normal in the normal scheme of things. If there is a contention, then it should be taken to another level. But if you have someone who's born here, you have all the necessary records, you can trace that person, and there is no question of documentation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You don't need a special board for that. You say yes or you say no.
So the Free National Movement's position is one of trying to, I suppose, include those who have been excluded, but based upon the principles and based upon the law.
Yes,
that they've been excluded.
that is correct. And if you think back, we rejoice in, we nationalize, we praise the man who we regard as the father of our nation.
Yes.
And we all know his story. Had we taken this position, maybe we would have denied ourselves of great contributions of Sir Lyndon Finley.
No question about it. And certainly he was a great man who made an invaluable contribution to our growth and development. But tell me, Mr. Campbell, apart from all of this, people have said, and I can only tell you from what I get on feedback, that a lot of what we see happening in the area of crime and destruction and violence and the rest of it is not a people of our ilk. It's not our people. Now, I know this, I used to deal with this all the time when I was police spokesman with the Royal Bahamas Police Force. And when we gave the statistics, they were always shocked to find out, oh, these are older people to improve. That's how it was in the 90s. I don't know how it is now because I've been on this since 1994, somewhere around there. But the point is, I want to ask you about that because it is out there. And you as a Free National Movement candidate and with your background in policing in this country, perhaps you can be a person who can really answer that question with scholarship, because they've said that, you know, these are not people, these people who are doing this stuff, and maybe they're right. Maybe it's not our people. Maybe there's a whole new paradigm that's happening in our country that we see a new spike in violence that is just phenomenal. But I want to ask you that question because I think it's very important going forward.
Steve, in 1986, when I joined the police force, it was almost certain whenever I saw a person, a Haitian person in custody, it was almost certain, at least 80% of the time, that that person was there for being an illegal, as a result of being an illegal immigrant. As time moved on, I found that more and more of them were involved in some of the regular criminal activities. The fact of the matter is, the environment, persons are product of the environment as much as they are product of what they inherit. So if these people are in this environment, they will participate in some of the things that are happening in the environment. But I will agree, based on what the tranquil New Providence, the tranquil Bahamas that I knew, that a lot of the things that are happening now are not necessarily of that origin. But we cannot forget that there is that constant outside influence via the media, movies, songs. Our people travel, you know, parents send their kids off to school and they come back with 10 earrings and 1 million tattoos. The outside influence, we do not exist in a vacuum here in the Bahamas. How do we deal with that? We need to continue to renew that which is Bahamian. We need to continue to share our stories with our children. We need to continue to value discipline. We need to continue to have our children realize that there is a consequence for their action. And as the children are now more exposed, we need to take some time to hear them. I have a 12-year-old daughter, Fia, who says to me, Daddy, you're not giving me a chance to talk.
Mhm.
And I have to stop and let her talk,
Mhm.
even though I might still disagree with her at the end.
Mhm.
But these children are not from that age where we used to say children are to be seen and not to be heard.
Right.
Or if someone comes to visit, we tell the children, go and hide. This is a different age.
No question about
These
it.
children are watching the sitcoms where they think it's okay to be witty and snappy with their answers.
Very true.
And you have to say to them, listen, that is okay when you're with your friends. But that isn't how you speak with me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a very, very good point that you made just now, because I didn't even realize that that's exactly what it is. These kids are very, very witty, and sometimes you can mistake that for them being
rude.
Yeah,
But they're not necessarily
yeah.
rude. They think it's okay because that's what happens on the sitcoms.
Yeah.
And many of us are guilty because we're allowing the sitcoms to grow them up.
We call them sharp on the mouth.
Yes.
That kind of stuff. But you know, going back to this whole bit about the immigration, the whole idea of those illegals who've come here, that's now been placed in one category with those who were born here, who have been on the lines for a very long time, trying to get served, trying to go through the process. It is an unfair situation. There's no question.
No doubt.
I think that most who are involved in the policies of immigration, most who are custodians of what's supposed to happen in immigration, I think they all understand and agree with that. The thing is, what do we do? Because really, the lines are very long. There are all kinds of people who jimmy the system, you know what I mean, who go through and do things that are just not conventional. It's just not the way that we should be doing things. And there is a lot of corruption, frankly, in the system. And sometimes you just can't differentiate between what this is supposed to be and what that is supposed to be, because the whole thing seems to hodgepodge all in one big pool, and it's a messy pool of trying to determine who has a right over here and who doesn't. And that is one of the things that is also a very, very important consideration, even for those persons like you who one day hope to become a legislator in the House of Assembly. This is something that has to be dealt with. I have to ask you succinctly right here, how will that be dealt with? Because this is the crux, in my opinion, this is the crux of the matter.
Simply, Steve, you have a set of rules that are clearly delineated. And then it is clearly understood that these rules are here for all and sundry. These rules apply to the gentleman in Lightfoot Key whose child was born in the United States and who has an American passport. They are the same rules for the child of the Haitian person who is going to immigration.
Mm-hmm.
They have to be clear, they have to be understood, and then the persons who are applying or enforcing the rules have to understand that there are consequences for straying from these rules and regulations. You see, there's something, in my humble opinion, called organized chaos. Some people want it to remain chaotic because within this chaos, I can then cause somebody to believe I could do him a favor.
Yes.
To cause a shortcut.
Mhm.
But in order for me to do him this favor now, you got to give me a little something.
Yes. Yes.
But if the rules are clear, if there are clear timelines and time frames, if it is understood that I apply today and I'm going to get a response within 7 days,
Yeah.
it won't be necessary for me to say, Mr. McKinney,
You will
let me give you a little something.
Exactly.
Do this real quick.
Mhm.
So once we have that understanding, and that is
Systematic
where I think a difference needs to be made, not in a change of personnel, not changing the director, not changing the commissioner, not changing the commodore, changing the policies, protocols, and procedures,
Absolutely.
and ensuring that they are followed, notwithstanding who is there.
It remains.
It remains.
It's like governance. It's
Yes.
continuous.
Yes.
And
And it's
you don't
only
change
then
it.
will we have that paradigm shift.
Understood.
People who give service must be clear that they are there to serve. They must be almost like Lady Justice, blind to who is requesting the service and concerned only about the service.
Well, that would be a glorious
to
day.
give.
A glorious day should be.
It's not going to be an overnight thing.
So we could really feel good about
It
it.
won't be an overnight thing, but changes in mindset take some time, but it calls for leadership. It calls for persistence. I heard the phrase today: people don't do what is expected, people do what is inspected. So then there going to be need for inspectors,
Yeah.
for persons who are doing quality control.
Yes.
I learned the term during my studies, TQM, total quality management, where you're always seeking improvement. If you can't do it faster, then you try to do it better. But you're constantly evaluating and reevaluating. So that is going to be necessary. We can't rest even when we have some measure of success, because there will still be a lot more to do, even if it's just preparing those others who will come behind us to do.
I appreciate what you said. We're talking today, friends, with Frankie Campbell. Remember the name. That's his name, Frankie Campbell. He's the candidate for Southern Shores, and we're going to turn our attention to more of that in just a minute. But he's a man who has, in fact, been making an impression. People have told me, Steve, when you can bring Frankie Campbell on? I mean, you've got to talk with him. He has a lot to say. And so far, I must say that I'm hearing him, and it's impressive that he does, in fact, have a lot to say. It's not an empty kind of spill out that this is something with a wholesomeness of good information and some philosophical approaches to a lot of things. And this is always important in the body politic of the country, and it's always important in the administrative capabilities of the country, that we need to find the kind of people who can help to bring remedies to bear on our situation. I'm thinking that all of you would agree on Hard Copy Nation that if you don't find the right remedies, we're just spinning wheels and wasting time. Another man who I often speak of, who has been one of finding remedies, has been the late Dr. Miles Monroe. The late Dr. Miles Monroe has said a number of things on this same situation with the Haitian population in the Bahamas, and he spoke to Article 7 of the Constitution that really outlines what is supposed to happen. He asks a question to, what are we to do when these kids are going to grow up? And it's almost the same thing that you asked.
Yes.
And I wanted to share that soundbite because it can put it in context that Frankie Campbell is not alone in his approach to finding a solution. But maybe we, the people, don't want a solution. Maybe we want organized chaos, as he said.
Yes.
Maybe that's what we want. Maybe it's beautiful because we can make a couple of dollars in organized chaos. But this is what Miles Monroe had to say.
Kind of a unique situation where we've allowed a person, and I say this with emphasis, we have allowed people to come into our country, allowed them to stay for 25 years, did not deal with the problem. And during that 25 years of our negligence of implementing our own laws, these people have children.
I don't know why. I think
That
that's
child,
change
therefore,
the setting.
living
They
after
gotta
20
check
years,
the
have
setting on
no
it.
connection to the home state of that father, or even the mother. And that child, therefore, we use the term stateless. Others say that the child is not stateless because there's another law, for example, in the particular case of the largest immigrant issue we have is Haiti. They state that anyone born from Haitian parentage in any country, they automatically have Haitian citizenship and can have a Haitian passport. Now, if that is true on the Haitian side, then we got a real issue on the Bahamian side, because you, first of all, allowed the illegal activity for 20, 30 years. You allowed the birth and the development and the growth of the child to illegal parents. The child has no relationship to the passport that his mother may have given him or his father may have given him. Never been to the country, doesn't know the language, don't know the culture. And then 25 years later you say, send them back. Or they are not legitimate. or they have no status. Well, the child may say, I have a passport that say I have a status in the country I don't know, but I live here. I was born here, I was schooled here, I was educated here. Now, how are you going to solve my problem, sir? So what we are concerned about is this. In essence,
Enforcing the law,
18 years, the child
destroyed by
is,
language, enforcing the law, destroyed by language.
I doesn't use the term for all intents and purposes, without legal or official
Something to
status.
do with,
And thus, due to the psychological,
They fall under
emotional,
immigration. They fall
physiological,
under immigration.
and mental
not
disillusionment
in the Bible.
impacting on
This
him or
month,
her,
it's not enough. Yeah, miles
sense
and
of
immigration. You have
disconnect, the
subtitles.
lack of
Yeah,
loyalty and
immigration,
allegiance
immigration.
will breed contempt.
Okay.
In other
Let's get
words,
ready.
this scenario creates a
Let's get
potential
ready.
for antisocial response to society as a whole, because the child feels rejected, disconnected, and that develops a sense of being lost, and then angry. And the anger is probably at two people. First, their parents, and then secondly, the country that they were born in. The society at large. Right. And so we have really like a time bomb that is sweltering. And
yeah, Miles Monroe were talking about, he talked with us about a number of issues. That wasn't quite the soundbite that I wanted, but the point is you get the gist of what he is saying from a point of view as to what could happen as a result of this non-inclusion, and this result of keeping people to the side.
Yes. You know, and I don't want to sound extreme, but you compare it to movies you would have watched about slavery and how certain child actors would have had that kind of remorse for the parent because they thought, well, maybe the parent hadn't been strong enough, or maybe the parent didn't make some of the right decisions. And then they also have some remorse against the slave master because of the treatment toward the parent and by extension the child. You know, I went to a forum about 2 years ago at the College of the Bahamas where they were talking about the Haitian situation, and a number of persons commented that, you know, it really doesn't affect them. I didn't go with the intention of commenting, but I said, those of us who have daughters have no control with whom our daughters will fall in love.
Absolutely, none.
And so, shouldn't we want to know that if our would-be son-in-law or daughter-in-law is entitled to something, that he or she ought to get it? The other thing, you say it doesn't affect you. You just purchase your nice Camry and you're on the road, and someone comes out and hits you, and then he disappears. But he disappeared because, notwithstanding he was born here, he's 19, 20, but he can't get a driver's license. He can't get insurance.
Wow.
So he has to flee because he can't stand up and face the fact that he made a simple mistake of probably just taking his foot off the gas pedal, but knowing that he won't have any means of causing your vehicle to be made whole.
So he runs.
He runs.
Yeah.
Could we have avoided that? Could
Certainly.
we have avoided that?
Certainly. Obviously, you said it earlier, it has to be the systematic approach of making sure that we have things that are so in order that we will not be in such a
We
position.
regularized numbers. One of the reasons we gave was that we want to get rid of a quote-unquote underground economy.
Yes.
Well, there's an underground economy going on now within that community who can't go to the bank.
Well, these are the things that you've got to amplify, Frankie Campbell, because obviously you make a very good point, and a lot of people may not have thought about it that way. Yes, when you compare the numbers thing, they did say that this was going to fleece the country of all the monies and assets, and they're going to, and it still is doing that now because it's not properly regulated. But the point is, the comparison that you make just now is one of, I believe, people can think of and say, you know, that's true. how come we haven't done anything yet really to bring about this underground economy to the forefront of neutralizing it by putting the right systems in place to make sure that we don't have this. And this goes far. You've got JPs and all these people who are doing things and fleecing these people.
Yes.
You've got people who are victims of police because the police knock on their door, some of them, and they say, look here, I come to check, and they want to collect me. I understand that. And a lot of people, we don't talk about it much on radio, but a lot of people don't seem to get this particular message, that this can become very explosive because people are going to be tired of being taxed by these unscrupulous people who, in fact, are taking advantage of a system that's in organized chaos.
Well, Steve, I don't want to, they said life and death is in the power of the tongue.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to speak to the possible explosion.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is, if you consider the fact that it is said, and there, I'm sure, are statistics to back it up, that even with our homicides, a number of them are retaliatory.
Yes.
It suggests that it has nothing to do with your nationality.
Mm.
If you feel that you're not getting justice, it has nothing to do with your nationality, nothing to do with your heritage, nothing to do with your color.
Mm-hmm.
It's instinctive.
Right.
You back a cat into the corner, a normally sweet cat, and that cat will scratch you.
Mm-hmm.
It's instinctive. It's within our nature.
Mm-hmm.
It's a survival instinct.
Yeah.
I suggested while serving as charge d'affaires in the Bahamas Embassy in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, and observing the number of persons coming to say, sir, I have this birth certificate. I was born in the Bahamas. I'm now 18, 19. I was deported with my mother. I would like to go back.
You got this guy.
I got that kind of thing on a daily basis.
On a daily basis.
The difficulty I had was the birth certificate appears to be authentic, but I can't be certain that it belonged to the bearer. And I suggested that now that we have inkless, the ability to take fingerprints and footprints, etc.,
Yes.
without putting the ink on the child, because we have the AFIS system that the police use. It's the same system when you go into the United States. They say, put your right thumb, your left thumb. That we cut our losses and we get to the point where we start recording the prints of our newly born and create a database. 20 years from now, we shouldn't be having the same problem and not being able to verify.
Mhm.
That was my first suggestion. The second suggestion was, if there is some concern or some inability to process a citizenship within a time frame, how about granting a temporary permit, a residence permit, while the person is waiting? He's still able to do his banking, he's still able to function,
Yes.
and he's still able to contribute to the society. He's still able to pay his national insurance. He's still able to do all those things that would cause the funds that he's working for on that construction site to become part and parcel of the economy, to fuel the
Plus, it
economy.
also makes him feel, he or she, that she is a part of the economy.
Yes.
And that they're making a contribution, and that it's only a matter of time before they're sorted out. It would be a fantastic day, a grand old day, if in fact those kinds of things take place and we can get away from this whole corrupt system that you've rightly termed organized chaos, because that's where the people thrive. Those ones who are up to something no good, they thrive right there, and that's quite interesting. Well, we're talking with Frankie Campbell here this afternoon, friends, on Hard Copy, and there's much more that we can talk about, and we will get into some other areas. And I wonder if Mr. Campbell is looking at a number of things that he spoke to me about today to have implemented in the narrative of the Free National Movement, should he be a part of that group and they get to the place that they're looking to get, the governance in the government, of the Bahamas. And certainly I think that I want to get to that point in just a minute as I run to the break and pay a couple of bills. Southern Shores, Frankie Campbell. That's who we're talking with today. And when we come back, there's more to come. We're going to see exactly what else he has for us because they told me I need to talk with this fella. And so far, I'm not disappointed at all. I need somebody who can articulate exactly what the position is and not be afraid and not try to be politically correct. It's a real conversation. We're back in a minute.
We're celebrating tourism's finest throughout the islands of the Bahamas. 17th Seek Awards. Help us thank the
I
many
think it's the other
talented
tourism.
dedicated nominating them today.
It's
Strawberry,
the other tourism
hotel,
ad, not this.
taxi drivers,
It's the other one.
musicians,
Which
airlines,
one?
tour operators.
Domestic?
List goes on.
So don't
You
let them
have the
know.
power to choose.
Okay.
Best in the industry.
Before I
Log on
leave,
to seekawards.com.
make sure I have a copy of
Visit the
your,
tourism office on your
what
right.
your
Fill out a
rates
nomination
are.
form. Deadline is
Yeah.
January 20th.
Thank you.
17th.
now by pumping.
Exactly, I understand.
Won't leave you exposed.
But I don't want them to think that you were gonna avoid that.
No, that's why I declare.
Welcome back, good afternoon, welcome back. I'm Steve McKinney, of course. My guest today is none other than Frankie Campbell. And Frankie Campbell is the man who has decided that he is going to go into Southern Shores and has been there for some time, and now he wants to go in there and clean house. And the first place to start in cleaning house is to get rid of those in the PLD who, in fact, is represented by Ken Dorset in that particular area. So he takes on Ken Dorset. And people believe that this is going to be one interesting race because of the fact that people are saying that this fellow, Frankie Campbell, is somebody you need to talk with. You need to talk with him because he, in fact, espouses many views on many items and many things that can only help the country. And I want to ask you about that. You have gone now to run into Southern Shores. You came from being a policeman and all that, from being a charge d'affaires in Haiti, and you are home here again, now willing to make a change, but at a different level. You've now ratcheted up some. You're going to go into politics. And then going into this politics, you're up against many big giants. And I didn't say little giants, I said big giants. These are real giants because the system is one that's stacked against you in many ways. How prepared are you for this kind of stuff?
I've dodged bullets. I've spent many nights in the draft. I've lived in tents. I've been away from home for long periods of time. I've had many, many varied experiences, but most of them involved dealing with people. And anything that involves dealing with people, I'm satisfied that I'm prepared for.
Now, go ahead.
I would have spent some time leading up to the 2002 election in the Adelaide constituency with Frank Watson. And then I said to you my interest in 2007. In 2004, thereabout, I spent some time as a police officer at the Carmichael Road Police Station. I did a bit of walking around with Maynard in 2007. I'm familiar with the terrain. I'm known to the people, and I have gotten to know a lot of the people. I've made it clear to them that I don't come bearing gifts. I don't come with any pie in the sky promises. I don't come prepared to paint the entire constituency with one broad brush. I appreciate the fact that it is a very diverse constituency. It's huge geographically, from Rocky Pine Road in the north all the way to Marshall Road in the south, from Gladstone Road on the eastern side to Myla Butler Drive on the western side, and all of Flamingo Gardens and Millis Heights.
Huge area.
Huge area with about 6,000 on the last register.
Wow.
So I appreciate that each household has a unique set of concerns. Each community has its own challenges. Each polling division have separate and differing interests. One common thread exists among all of those communities and all of those households is the need, the want, the desire for full-time representation. Not a representation that will go to sleep for 3.5, 4 years after one election, and then wake up and wonder why people don't know who he is or who is the representative. But 64 months, 5 years.
Yes.
That is what I'm offering to Southern Shores. 5 years of full-time representation, being both accessible and available, being willing to say to them, I can't do this. I can't deliver this. This I can. This I will. This we need to work on together. I don't present myself as having all the answers or all the solutions, but I'm satisfied that the more I talk to them together, we are going to come
So they get this.
to the solutions.
People,
And they get that.
People get it.
They get that. They seem to appreciate that breath of honesty, that breath of sincerity. I'm knocking on doors, and people are saying, come in and have a seat. And sometimes I'm saying, but I might track mud on it. No, have a seat.
So you're being welcome.
I'm being welcome. I'm encouraged when I ask for one contact after giving out my contact that I'm given several phone numbers as opposed to one. I'm encouraged that I go into houses and I find that there is a Christmas card from Frankie Campbell in 2014. There's another one from Frankie Campbell in 2015. And there's another one in 2016. Not all houses. You would appreciate that. In 2014, I would have been testing the waters.
Yeah.
I would have been interested in the candidacy. In 2015, I would have been only a potential candidate. And only last year on the 19th, this month is actually my 1-year anniversary of having been ratified.
Yeah.
So I would have ramped it up.
So you've been doing stuff in the area for quite
Yes,
some time.
I have been there. I have been able to sit and speak with people. Some people just needed to vent. So I sat with them for half an hour if that's what they needed. There was never a rush. No one can say that I would have said to them, excuse me, but I got to go. I spent the time with them, and there are persons who I would have already seen twice and 3 times, and there are persons that I'm coming back to. There is one small area that I have not yet touched in a significant way, but I'm en route in short order. I will be there. I know the people by name, those that I would have met. I thank God for my policing background. I have that good memory. So many of them I know by name, and the faces I recognize. And I say to them, hey, there's 6,000 of you. So if for any reason I appear not to remember, you remember me. Remember me and tell me who you are. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, my objective is to foster a relationship, the kind of relationship that will cause my fear, who's now 12, 10 years from now, to meet someone who will say, sit down, your daddy was a halfway decent fella. Let me see if I can help you.
No question about it. I want to ask you about that because Dr. Hubert Minnis has to be, in your term, a halfway decent fella when you put it in context, because of the fact that he would have done research to look at who this man, Frankie Campbell, is and what he represents, and the fact that he followed through on his ratification, and the fact that Frankie Campbell is the standard bearer for the Free National Movement. A lot of people tell me that you're one of the bright spots within the grouping of the Free National Movement. A quiet storm who's just been working, just been doing your thing. What are your thoughts about Minnis, the leader of the Free National Movement, having gone and withstand all the things that he went through, still standing and still able to put together a young, strong, dynamic team, especially in your case in Southern Shores?
If there ever was a person who was in the right place at the right time for the right reason, I would have to say that it is Hubert Minnis. There is no other explanation for why he would have been able to withstand all that was thrown at him and to still be standing and standing strong and standing and smiling and standing and still pushing those things that he believed in, those things that he believed will improve the quality of life for the Bahamian people. Believing in those people who need the help most. Being prepared to reach down and give a hand up. I'm impressed with him. Sometimes I say to him, you're too nice, but I'm persuaded that you're the one nice guy who's not gonna come last. When you look at the patience that he would have displayed with those detractors, with those that may have sought to destroy him, I mean, to put it bluntly.
Yeah.
Yet still he exercised patience, yet still he showed compassion, yet still he showed a willingness to work with whomever until at the very end when certain persons just showed their hand.
Yeah.
And
this is the thing. People believe that Minnis was just too easy with them and so forth and so on. But maybe now as you talk, yourself and others are getting the impression that this man is thorough. This man is He's patient.
Yes.
He has decided to. He's very calculating. He's decided that this is what it is, and this is how I'm going to deal with it. And a lot of times, even we on talk radio, we become impatient because
Yes.
we believe that from a public relations point of view, he ought to be doing this, that, and that right now. And it's not always. And somebody reminded me, Frankie Campbell, the other day, that you see, Steve, what is happening is that Menace is a different character.
Yes.
He's not what we expect because we've been having this political thing for so long, the way with leadership being the way it was, belligerent in many cases and that kind of thing. He says, but he has a different style, and his style embodies a whole lot of patience, which is not something that we're familiar with in politics.
It reminds me of that verse that we hear at weddings in Corinthians, how love is kind and love is patient and love is all giving. And when you look at what he's gone through, especially in the last 18 months,
Yeah.
He really exemplifies that passage in Corinthians. But having said that, I am comfortably following Hubert Minnis. I am comfortable to be a member of his team. I am persuaded that he's going to become the next Prime Minister of the Bahamas. And I am further persuaded that during his time in office, a difference will be made. And I'm humbled to be a part of it.
Is that resonating, that message? Is that message resonating out there in Bahamas? Is that catching on? Are people seeing Hubert Alexander Minnis for what he is really worth? Are they gravitating to him, his stewardship, his leadership, his patience? This is a new word I've added there, his patience. Do you get that this is now resonating with the Bahamian people?
I find it necessary when I'm in his company to allot sufficient time before a function and after a function, because he is bombarded by persons of all age groups who want a selfie, who want to have a word, who want to shake his hand, who want to give a word of encouragement, who want to say to him, remain steadfast, we believe in you. Hubert Minnis, we all know and accept, is not that great orator that we know the Perry Christie or the Lyndon Pinlin to be. And as a result of that, his place, his greatest contribution may not necessarily be on that stage
Oratory
of
skills.
10,000.
Yeah.
But I can assure you without fear of honest contradiction, those people who have the privilege to meet him one-on-one, those persons who participate in smaller groups, you want to see his strength? Go to a town hall meeting where you can actually stand there and field questions and interact with the crowd. Those people leave there feeling warmed and filled by him. He is resonating the more people come into contact. But more so, his message is resonating. People hear about his energy plans, solarization. People hear about the plans for the inner city. People hear about his plans for education. People hear about his back to the family island plans. People hear about his plans to improve local government and to ensure that local government is brought here into Providence. People hear about his crime, his plan to have an anti-corruption task force. People hear about him analyzing not just the need to stop crime, but going to the root of it, looking at the causes, the symptoms, and pledging to eliminate those before attacking the actual crime and punishment aspect of it. This is a man who is result-oriented. This is a man who is calculated, and he sees the Bahamas and the plight of the Bahamian people, I imagine, as he would one of his patients. And he's moving strategically, and he's making the necessary plans to heal this patient called the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
We've never really had a doctor in the House as far as the prime ministership is concerned. And when you said that just now, that hit me as, one has to be very, very mindful and careful. You have to have those hands that are very, very careful
Yes,
to do the skilled work
yes,
with that of a patient.
yes.
And you've got to be very massaging and very, very, involved in the conversation to find out what the problems are. So
And still remember that the thing you're dealing with is a human being.
that's quite interesting.
Well, I'm happy that you said that. I sat back and I watched while Whitney Bastian was a member of parliament. And every debate, he found a way to bring in the benefits of fishing.
Yeah.
And I said to myself, well, imagine if there were carpenters who would find a way to bring in the benefit of carpentry.
Right.
If there were teachers who would find a way to bring in the benefit of teaching and all the other backgrounds and disciplines. And therein, in my humble opinion, calls for a very diverse grouping of people, not just lawyers. Not that I have an issue with the lawyers,
Right.
but there are other disciplines that have a contribution for a holistic growth and development of the Bahamian people.
We're taking your calls at 325-0235 or 6, in case you're wondering, 325-0242 or 43, 325-025 or 53, and you can WhatsApp and text us at 376-9234. You're getting the essence of this man. I told you that's what I was after today. I'm trying to learn him, trying to find out more about him, and so in doing that, I'm sharing with you all of that that makes up Frankie Campbell, and you've got to learn a whole lot today. And certainly the people of the Southern Shores, I'm sure, are very impressed with him. And people who are listening must be, because we're talking about a fellow who is for real. And it's not been a common thing that you find real people on issues that can be very controversial and sometimes politically incorrect to deal with. And so, having said that, I take your calls today at 325-0235 or 6 and 325-0242 or 43. Hot copy, how you doing?
How you doing today?
Very good, thanks.
Yeah, Mr. Campbell, how you doing, sir?
I'm fine, thanks. How are you, sir?
All right, I'm JT. This is my first time hearing you, name and voice, Mr. Campbell.
Yes, sir.
So I don't know you at all.
Yes, sir.
And I just tuned in a few minutes ago, so I didn't quite catch, all that you were talking about, but I heard enough to prompt me to call in.
Yes, sir.
I'm, first of all, to acknowledge, I'm a member and supporter of the Bahamas National Coalition Party, headed by Wesley Campbell.
Yes.
Now, my reason for calling into you today, the show, is I heard you when you were extolling those, I suppose, virtues that you would call them of Dr. Minnis.
Yes.
So I have some questions for you in regards to him. But before I do, let me say up front, I do not support Dr. Minnis as an individual, the leader. I do not support the FNM of the party. I do not support the Christie, neither do I support the PLP. Because in my humble opinion, both of those political parties have contributed to the mess that the Bahamas is in today. Now, that being said, if you can answer me yes or no on this question, on these few questions, please, I'd appreciate it.
I'll try.
My first question is this. Among all of those virtues that you were talking about, Dr. Minnis, a while ago, was Dr. Minnis, from what you know, reduced or pushed to have the powers of the Prime Minister reduced?
Yes, two-term limit. He is committed to that.
Okay, two-term limit is good. We need that desperately. What about a fixed date for election?
Yes, we're committed. He has committed to that fixed date for election, permanent boundaries commission,
Right.
independent prosecutor who will not answer to the Attorney General.
Okay, what about, when I say reducing the powers of the Prime Minister, I'm talking about also removing Crown lands from under the portfolio of Prime Minister. That is one of those other big things. I'm also looking at
The next Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, Hubert Minnis, has indicated that he will not take a ministry, that he will be the CEO of the cabinet. In that regard, I think it's safe to say that he will not be the minister responsible for lands.
No, and I hear you, but what I'm talking about, sir, in terms of constitutional and structural reform of our country, does he believe in or push for constitutional amendments that will take away the crown lands from under the portfolio of the prime minister?
Well,
Because right now we've seen the abuses that have happened by these prime ministers in respect to crown lands.
I don't want to venture into the constitutionality of it, but based on our
Out of
discussions,
respect, that's what I'm asking you.
yes, I'm saying to you, if you would allow me,
Sure.
based on our discussions, I wouldn't want to preempt anything constitutional, but I know that he will not be the minister responsible for lands because he has indicated that he will not take a ministry. He will be the CEO of the cabinet.
I accept that as you just stated it, sir. But
Yes.
what I'm asking you is concerned behavior, sir. We have seen all of the abuses.
I understand you, and I want you to see clearly that I'm not trying to avoid you, but I will speak only to that which I know, and that is why I limited.
I have to respect you for that. I have
Thank
to
you, sir.
respect you for that. Because like you say, you speak to which is so. Let me put it this way then.
Go on, sir.
If Dr. Minnis were to have been prime minister tomorrow,
Yes.
what Dr. Minnis should tell you and I, the public, is regarding the power of the prime minister, he would then put forth a constitutional reform for the structure of government to change, for the substance of government to be deepened, and for the positive effect of government to be more broadly felt upon the Bahamian people. You mentioned a few of those, solarization, for example. I like that idea, to be honest with you,
Yes, sir.
because I'm one of those persons who've been pushing for solarization in this country for a long time.
Yes, sir.
But I don't just want to hear these things being spoken in a vacuum, quote unquote. What I would want to hear from a Dr. Minnis, if he were to become prime minister of this country, is that he will push for systemic changes in our country, all of the systems of government being changed to be fair and balanced for all of the Bahamian people, for the structure of government to be changed, wherein you would have powers constitutionally, powers reduced and taken away from the office of prime minister, and of course the political changes that you just alluded to, the 50 states, free elections, and all of those things.
JT,
These are the kinds of things that this country is desperately in need of, and we are dying from because of all of the corruption, all of the wickedness, all of the unfairness, all of the nepotism that have gone on, that have deprived the common man from a lot of benefits in this country because politicians have taken advantage of the corrupt or inept or bad systems we have that nobody seems to have want to fix.
JT, I hear you, and in all truth and sincerity, I agree with you. What I find very interesting is that in recent times, just in a matter of the last year or so, we, the Bahamian people, have finally seemed to come to the reasonable conclusion that we are the bosses.
Yes.
And there should be participatory government. Because in the past, we have allowed our democracy to be a once in 5 year thing. And we have allowed politicians, like one I'm aspiring to be, we've allowed politicians to be placed on a pedestal, and they do as they feel for the 5 months. Now, if we continue along the same vein, for example, with what has been happening with the We March and what has been happening with R. Carmichael, with people coming together to show that there are things that people can do, people power together, and if sufficient persons come and band together and band their voices, government is forced to listen. If we continue along that, it would bring about a paradigm shift in this Commonwealth of the Bahamas, where no matter who is the government, there will have to be some listening.
But Mr. Campbell, with all due respect, sir, and we must, in what you just said, you have to then speak to structural changes, systemic changes, and fundamental changes.
Well, I would have spoken, you came in a bit late, and I would have spoken to the fact that we are looking forward to changing not just personnel, but policies, protocols, and procedures that will
Yeah.
will affect the quality of life and will outlive the individual.
I appreciate your call, JT. Thank you so much.
One quick question, please. Mr. Campbell,
Go ahead, sir.
if you were to become member of parliament for your area today, and your position, and I'm just being hypothetical now, and your position on capital punishment was anti, that you did not support it. I don't wish to know the moment whether or not.
Oh, I'm gonna tell you, I support capital punishment.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, so let me
I disregard all the argument that it is not, it's not, what is the word they use?
Deterrent.
It's not a deterrent.
God never meant it as a deterrent. God meant
The
it as a
Constitution never spoke of it being a deterrent. The Constitution speaks of it as being a punishment, and simply that.
Well, let me just quickly ask a question so I can move on. If you did not agree with a particular issue, but your constituents agreed with the position, if you were in Parliament today, whose position would you be putting forward? Yours as an individual, or those who put you there to represent them?
The constituents who elected me, without them, I would not be a member of Parliament.
Well,
That's a no-brainer.
If you become successful in your areas, I trust you will stick to that. You know why? Because it's most undemocratic and it's most offensive. When I would have heard in this term, politicians get up in the House of Assembly and say, my constituents say A, but I.
But they never even met with them, so they don't know what they said. The other thing that Dr. Minnis is promising is a recall system. Now, there are no figures on what percentage will be necessary, but so it would cause members of Parliament to know that if the people become so displeased with them, they don't have to wait 5 years.
Yeah, I appreciate your call, JT. I've got to go. I mean, you've asked a lot of questions. They're very good questions, and of course, Mr. Campbell gave you his best the answers that he could. Hard copy, how are you? Hard copy, how you doing? It's your time. Hard copy, how are you? Okay, I don't have anybody there. Hard copy, how are you?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, I can hear you.
All right, my concern is this. I don't see Dr. Minnis as an agent of change. This is going 10 years for Dr. Minnis in office now. He's had 5 years in governance with the former Prime Minister, and then he's had 5 years as an opposition leader in the House. I haven't seen him vote against anything that would bring pain and suffering to the Bahamas or to the Bahamian people. He voted for that. He voted for everything in the House, even the referendum. I don't think he has the core. He supports things in the House and then comes out and tells people to vote their conscience. How can he vote for that and then come and say he's going to move back off bread basket items and think, why didn't he just vote against it? Stand up and be a man. He can't be an agent of change now after 10 years. And now he's going to go in there and ask for 5 years to prove to the Bahamian people that he's this dynamic, new innovator, and then this system changer. The PLP and the FNM love the system just the way it is, and they know why they love it just the way it is. They are the most elite fraternity in the history of the Bahamas, and they're not going to change anything. They can't change anything, and Dr. Minnis knows why he can't change anything. They need to come true to the Bahamian people and explain to the Bahamian people after 50 years why we're being exploited, why we're being raped, why the Bahamian people now are in such a state of deprivation. It is just unconscionable that 2 consecutive governments over 25 years cannot manage the affairs of 350,000 people, have $8 billion in debt, and he's an agent of change. How? Impossible.
Okay, I'll let Mr. Campbell.
Respectfully, you are entitled to your opinion, and I appreciate that. I do see him as an agent of change. I believe that because it is clear that he will not be a supporter or maintainer of the status quo is the reason why he's been met with so much opposition, even from within, because maybe those persons want to maintain the status quo. I have to judge a man who has not given me any reason to the contrary. I have to judge him based on where I see him stand.
Yeah.
And I've had the honor and the privilege to have conversations with the good gentleman, Dr. Minnis.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm satisfied that on the record, off the record, in happy times and sad times, that he's been consistent with what I perceive to be a sincere intent to uplift and improve the quality of lives of the everyday Bahamian.
One of the things that's quite obvious here today is the fact that the callers who called so far, they both spoke in a way of not understanding a number of things that has been espoused by Dr. Minnis
Yes.
in his recent address. Maybe it may be incumbent upon Dr. Minnis or his handlers to replay his address again 7 more times, because you see, while you may be playing those addresses on social media and all that, people get hit and delete and that kind of stuff. And you have to get that message to resonate in the traditional media. That's the first thing.
Steve, I hear you, and I don't mean to interrupt you. I normally won't, but we have to account for that grouping who does not wish to hear, who will not hear. The first caller
That's true.
made it clear.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't support the
Yes,
man.
yes,
I
that's
am
true.
with another party.
Mhm.
So he made it clear that he does not wish.
Yeah, but it doesn't
Yeah.
give him license to be ignorant. No, it doesn't give him license to be ignorant of the facts of the matter, because I may not be interested in many things that may be happening, but I have to make it my job to listen so I can know what it is that people are talking about. So, I listen to everyone. I listen to all comers. I'm an equal opportunity provider. So it is important for us to know the lay of the land if we're going into an election. As Miles Monroe had said, you will not see an election like this. You'll never see one like this that we're about to have. This one is for all the Bahamas. This one determines whether we go into the new Bahamas or whether we go back to Egypt. It's that important. And so you've got to listen into everything that's being said. And see, I'm amazed that JT is always very spot on with a lot of things. No kidding.
Yes.
But to have not heard Minnis talk about the things that he plans to do as far as the recall system, the 2-term limit, those kinds of stuff. I mean, to me, I'm surprised at that, because of the fact that these things were said over and over again on social media, on the radio, not as much on the radio, I believe, in my own humble opinion, how it should have been done. But the point is, these things are off the record. And we need to know what is being said so that we can make an intelligent choice at the end of the day.
Steve, I remember in my Communication 101 class, it was stated clearly, one of the barriers to communication is perception or one's personal entrenched position.
That's true.
And so I respect those who are personally entrenched. I speak for the benefit of those who want to be open-minded, who want to participate, who want to judge any situation or person on his own merits and demerits, as opposed to generalizing.
Here's what somebody says as we go back to the lines in a minute. This person says, very impressed with Mr. Campbell, Steve. Awesome show, as usual. And then he goes on to say, next call, please. I suppose that's because of some of the calls that we would have gotten, but that is what that individual said. And so let's go to a next call, please. How you doing? Good afternoon. I'm Cobby.
Hi, Steve. Good afternoon.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I'm from Frankie Younger.
Good afternoon, sir.
I like to clear something from the last caller, right? Dr. Minnis never supported Bart. He voted against it. All right?
Well,
And he wants to support Bart.
I thank you for clearing that up. I didn't want to
Never supported
say
Bart.
yay or nay because I didn't recall what his vote was.
Yeah, because, if Dr. Minnis say vote, you correct, that's his right.
That's
Like,
his right.
I'm going to say the same thing too.
That's his right, and I respect him for respecting my right.
Yes. Yes. All right, I guess we'll clear it up.
Thank you very much, caller.
Thank you, guys. All right. That person who's called me twice and then got off the line, you got to call me and stay on the line, as I'm going to come to you. I appreciate it. 325-02-3516, 325-02-4243, 325-0252 or 53. You can text me as well at 376-9234. I'm on today with Frankie Campbell, not Franklin, but Frankie Campbell. That's the name that he is known as, and of course, the people in the Southern
I
Shores.
have one or two AKAs, but that's the government's name.
They're the government name.
Frankie Alfred Campbell is the government's name. There are some persons who only know me as 40. That was my police number.
Mhm.
And then there are some persons who, for most of my life, for the last 15 years of my career, who only called me Sarge. So I'm known by one or two.
Is that the level of rank that you went
Sarge?
to?
Yes, I made it to sergeant.
Okay. All right. This person says, Steve, from which party is Mr. Campbell? He is so spot on. Well, Mr. Campbell is from the party of the Free National Movement, is where he's from, and of course he's going to be the standard bearer in.
Slightly too old to be a torchbearer, but I do hold high the flame.
Yeah.
And speaking of torchbearers, if I may interject here, the torchbearers are having a youth convention on Thursday and Friday. They haven't had one in a long time, but it is not the first time that the torchbearers are having a convention. The party and the torchbearers thought it necessary, with such a huge grouping of young persons under 35 as candidates, along with the torchbearers, that they should have their own say. They should have their own voice. Give them the opportunity to speak in a language that the largest voting bloc in the country can understand and relate to. So I ask persons to pay attention, lend them your ears, and see what it is they have to offer. But because that is an indication of the future of the party, and by extension, the future of the nation, because those are the persons to whom the baton will be handed.
This person texts me and says, Frankie is a sensible man. No rhetoric at all coming from him. Pure facts. We love it, young people. We love it. And then it goes on to say, great show. Great show as always, Steve. That's a quality candidate on your show today. Quality. And he emphasizes that several times. Quality candidate. And so, well, we wanted to know who this man was. We're getting a bird's eye view as to what he represents and what he upholds. And his views espoused today have been quite interesting, to say the least, because we know what this country needs. And we need to have the right people, mechanics, to go in there and do the job, to make sure that we can get us to where we want to be. And maybe he's one of those persons who Miles Monroe talked about, people that we've never seen before, rising up and deciding that it's time to do some things in this country and bring about the kind of change that all of us would like to see. This person says, good evening, Mr. McKinney, listening intently to your guests. I'm glad he's old enough, I said, to share his experience. I'm glad he's old enough to share his experiences, is what this person said.
I'm 49 years old.
It's okay, so you're 49.
Yes.
And 49 and just getting ready to do your thing. And you've already.
I've contributed in several other capacities.
No, I know. I'm talking about now in politics.
Yes.
You're ready to get into politics.
So I'm
I'm
not a career politician. This is not a life or death situation for me.
You could walk away from this if nothing else.
And still continue in my life.
But even though you may say that you could walk away, and I'm sure if you don't come through, it would be a very, very devastating blow and a disappointment for yourself personally, and also for those in the leadership, because they're looking, I've heard it from all quarters, that they're looking at you with great interest as far as being a part of the decision-making process. I'll put it that way.
Steve, I've come to appreciate, after reading a book called Can the Pastor Do It Alone? That there are many different ways and means by which to serve and support. I've also come to appreciate, based on some personal experiences in my life, that to go against the will of God is to be swimming against the tide. I pray that my dreams, desires, and aspirations are consistent with His will and the plans He has for me. But if they're not, I accept that too.
But let me ask you, since you brought that up, because there are a lot of people today, Mr. Campbell, who in fact are just going with the flow, going with the tide, because this is how things are in our world, in our universe.
And they are agnostics and atheists and evolutionists and all kinds of other people who have come into our domain in the Bahamas. And we had all kinds of new things and that we are trying to belong and get along. I want to ask you definitively, you sound as if you believe in the supremacy of God. You sound as if you believe in the values and principles of a good Christian life. That's important. I want to ask you about that for a minute.
Steve, I have a praying mother. To this day, it makes no sense to call her house between 11:45 and 12:15 because she's on her knees. And it's because of those prayers that I believe I've been able to dodge the bullets that I dodged and all
She
the...
know but praying.
Oh, yes. And it has rubbed off. Far from perfect I am, but the lessons that she would have instilled in me from time to time reminds me and pulls me back into alignment. I know the value of prayer. I believe in Jesus Christ.
Praise the Lord.
I am an Anglican. I try to go to church as often as I can. I know the value of giving because I have received a lot in my lifetime. I tell you, when my friends were saying that they were poor, we had to save up to be poor. So I have an appreciation for the grace of God. And I always say, especially when I'm dealing with young people, I always say, but for the grace of God could have been me. So I believe in showing compassion. You know, in 2.5 years, I've been knocking on doors, having worked in the Carmichael constituency as a police officer. And yes, I had to kick down some doors, armed with a warrant, whatever the case may be, in hot pursuit of someone. But I have not been confronted by one person who said, "Why this you? Get from around here. You remember when you locked me up for nothing? Get from around here. Remember when you beat me up for nothing? You remember when you framed me?"
Never happened.
Never happened. It wasn't necessary to take advantage of or abuse anybody. I had a job to do, and I did it. And I say to some people in the constituency now who say to me, "How do I know that you will?" And I say to them, I have no magic formula or any crystal ball to show you. But I ask you, if you find the time, look into my past service. Look into the contribution that I would have made along the way that got me here. And that might serve as an indicator as to what I'm likely to become.
Hard copy, how you doing?
Hey, Brother Steve, good afternoon.
Peace and love, all is well.
The Monkey Diamond here.
Monkey Diamond, how you doing?
Good afternoon to Mr. Gamble.
Good afternoon, sir.
I'm the ex-member of Parliament.
Thank you very much.
I'm in the constituency of Sutton Shores.
Speaking, my brother.
And I want to endorse Mr. Gamble this afternoon. I remember after the hurricane, one of the first persons you saw was when he was able to come through. And Mr. Kinney, I actually met him before the hurricane, but I find him to be a gentleman. And I find him, as he said, to be a real person, a human being.
Yeah.
And you cannot ask for any more in a man or a woman.
Very true.
And I find him to be a real person. And I get to meet him totally in the last year and a half, him and his family. And I find him to have a wonderful family and a true man. Declaring that he is my illustrious brother, I would like to say that I am endorsing him as the next.
Fighting a flu and it's just terrible. But I'll be fine.
This is Timmy.
This is who?
We were colleagues at the BBC.
This is who?
This is Timmy.
Kimmy.
Yes, we were colleagues
Oh,
at
at
the
7S.
BBC.
Yes. Yes. I'm listening to you. What's happening?
I too wanted to endorse Mr. Frankie Ford Gamble. I am a constituent in the Sutton Shores area, and I've been here now for over 200 years.
Is that right?
Blue Hills. When it was a tall vine,
and our Southern Shores. And this member of parliament that we have now, I've yet to see him. I'm singing.
Who's that? Ken Dorset?
He had sense. You know what I'm saying? Hey, listen, I would like to speak to a member of parliament because, you know, he came to my door when he was looking to be voted in. I haven't seen him for 5 years, so. Mr. Campbell, every time I turn my head, I'm seeing him. He's walking around, he's rubbing shoulders with everybody. And, you know, I want to take this time and endorse Mr. Fortin Campbell as the next member of Parliament for Southern Shores.
I appreciate it. Well, that's quite interesting.
Caller, may I ask just for the record, how much were you paid to say that?
I'm a person who speaks my mind, and Steve would remember me.
Yes, I do.
So, yeah, you would know that, hey, listen, I'm going to tell you what's on my mind.
That's always.
And that's the type of person I am.
Yeah.
And you know, notwithstanding that, hey, nobody's perfect, I believe, I know that Mr. Campbell is going to come into office, and he is going to do what the Bahamian people ask him to do. And you know, he has been a police officer, which I definitely endorse. So he knows what's going, how to deal with this crime. You know, and he's been a statesman. And you know what, Mr. Campbell, whenever this bell rings, I look to see you there, the government house, in your nice suit.
All right.
So I thank you for your endorsement, and I beg your continued prayers and support.
Thank you for your call, brother. Thank you for your call. It's quite interesting, the testimonies that have come today from a man who, in fact, has been just open about what he believes ought to be the position of a lot of things. I wanted to ask him more in detail about the crime thing, but I see my time is slipping away. I may get a chance to do that, but let me just take this final call. Hi, Copy, how are you?
Good evening, Steve. Good evening to you again, Mr. Campbell.
Good evening, sir.
Steve, you covered the PLP and mentioned just the twist of it. Did anything anything strange happen during your time?
At the PLP convention?
Yeah, were there any injuries or anybody had to go to the hospital or anything like that?
No, that never happened.
Okay.
No, it never happened. I saw some stuff that was in the paper, but that was totally unconnected to anything at the PLP convention. In fact, I can tell you that there was a lady who happens to be the daughter of a lady who used to be a stalwart counsel or something, and she unfortunately had a very bad mishap, and this is why I never touched it. She was in a meeting at BIS, and she fainted, and she went into blackout, and she is now in critical condition at the hospital in the ICU from that day. And it's been very, very rough on a lot of people. I know her personally, and she's a good friend of mine, and it was just absolute garbage and nonsense that was published, because it never happened down there. She had nothing to do with anything. She wasn't there. She was at the meeting at BIS when she fell ill. And we've got to be careful sometimes when we hear these things, because, you know, somebody just decided to make the connections because the mummy some years ago was a stalwart counselor. And, you know, her mummy now lives in New York. So this is something that was unfortunate. And I do empathize with her, and I'm praying for her that she may, in fact, recover fully. That's what the position is.
My last statement, Steve, the PLP convention that they had, Steve, the speakers, the various speakers that they had at the convention, I'm not trying to be facetious or anything like that, but straight up, who do those speakers think they are talking to?
Well, you know, I have my views on it. And last evening, I missed the show, the last word, because of illness. I wasn't feeling well, still not feeling well. But I came out for the show today because I think that you know, I felt a little bit better, but not 100%. But the point is, we wanted to analyze all that was done and said at that meeting with PLP, the convention. And there's a lot that's still not been said yet. But you know, a lot of things, I said some with Danny Johnson on the show on Friday, that you just can't decide that you're going to go with all this rhetoric like they did. And I understand that Brother Warren McCartney today had Al-Qaeda on his show, and I understood what happened down at that show, and rightly so, because you know, these guys want a pass. You just don't get a pass. You've got to be accountable. And for a man who's the Minister of State for Financial Services in this country, for Finance, Minister of State for Finance, it is not to him to play this game of rhetoric. He's supposed to be succinct and above reproach. I mean, above. He's supposed to just be talking about the things that are genuine and factual, and numbers don't lie. You cannot be flippant with these kinds of things. And so I think I made that clear on the show on Friday. But there's so many other things to talk about. And a lot of them just came up with the rhetoric. They didn't have any content. And the Bahamian people want content. When it comes to content, okay, what did you do with this? Why did we spend this? How can we spend this kind of money on Carnival? Why do we do this? I mean, and those things were missing in action. They were all MIA. And I believe the Bahamian people will find the PLP in that particular convention wanting on a lot of things, or a lot of issues. And that's basically the size of it.
Hey, Steve, I guess your thoughts are with me. I'll try to get it so I can talk to you before it's done.
I appreciate it. Thank you kindly. All right. So that's where we are, my friend. I wanted to ask you, Mr. Campbell, about your overall take. I know I did mention some crime, but your overall take on the remedies and your philosophy of approach to this whole crime epidemic that we now face. You can perhaps give that to me today, because I think I need that for the record.
Steve, I would need the full 2 hours just to discuss crime, but I will attempt to put it in a nutshell in 30 seconds. We will have to, first of all, examine the causes of crime, and we have to be honest. The causes of crime, the social ills, the poor education, the lack of jobs, poverty that cause crime. Some of them, some people may say, are excuses, but be they excuse or cause, let's identify them, and then let's try to eliminate them. And then you look at the crime itself. There is crime and punishment. There is crime and enforcement. There is prevention and detection. There is a need for high visibility. Criminals are like any little child. They will do that which they think they could get away with. It's 10 p.m., you're at the intersection of the mall at Marathon, there are no other vehicles there, you don't see any flashing lights, and you figure you could get away with running the light, and you do. So after we would eliminate those excuses, we have to make sure that the criminal or the would-be criminal is of that mindset that the chances of him being caught and punished are high. You know, back to the question of capital punishment. I hear young men say to other young men, "Boy, I'll do 18 months for you, you know." But I've never heard one young man say to another man, "Boy, I'll go to the gallows for you, you know." I don't hear one say to another one, "Boy, I'll take 6 lashes that I got 9 jail for you, you know." See, it's a simple case. After doing all of that analysis and strategizing, bring it back in a nutshell. Reverse the fear. A small group of persons have the majority of us in fear of becoming victims.
Absolutely.
We must reverse the fear and cause the criminal or would-be criminal to be satisfied that he or she will be caught, dealt with, while there will be attempts to rehabilitate, but failing that, we'll put you away from society because you've chosen that this is not where you want to be. These incidents in the schools, they didn't just start to happen. In the late 70s, some parent decided, I'm going to that school to find out why that teacher, who that teacher thinks she is to beat my child. One child was emboldened, and then many more children were emboldened. Then we got to the point where no child could be beaten. So now all the children are emboldened. There was a time, in my time, your time, when we prepared our young children to conform to the norms of society.
Very true.
Now we're trying to bend the norms of society to conform to our children. So there is the parental responsibility, there is the responsibility of the community that has been eroded or set aside. And then you have that simple comparison. Kingsway Academy or Queen's College is right down the road from L.W. Young. You have issues at L.W. Young, but you don't have those issues at SAC. You have policemen at L.W. Young, but you don't have no policemen at SAC. Why? Because the child at SAC, parents paying $1,000+, and that parent want result. So that parent is involved. That parent attends the PTA meetings. That parent knows that there are some infractions that are not up for discussion. It is expulsion. So that child is taught quick, fast, and in a hurry. You have to make some consequential decisions because I'm working hard for this money, or don't make me waste my money. But on the other hand, the government gotta take you. Miss so-and-so to see I Gibson gotta take you. Well, I got no time for no PTA meeting. But the minute you get a call, the child lock up, boss man, I gotta go, my child lock up. Why not exercise that same pace when it's time to go to a PTA, when you can plan properly and go and be a part of the child's educational life and prepare these children to conform to the norms of society.
Final question here today, and it comes from the text messages that I've gotten. It says, Mr. Steve, please ask Mr. Campbell if the People's Movement Party is a major problem for both major parties. He says Mr. Campbell is good for the People's Movement Party. Actually, the party's called the TPM, the People's Movement. But that's the question.
I don't see the People's Movement Party as a problem for either the government or the opposition. I see them more as a plus for the people. I honestly and sincerely believe that it is time for the people to participate in their own governance. It is time for the people to participate in the decision makings that will affect them. It is time for them to be involved, and that is what local government was intended to be. It stopped short. Some responsibilities, more responsibilities need to be given. There need to be devolution of powers and authorities. We need to implement it in New Providence. But let's look at, you have school boards, and those school boards make some decisions for their group of schools. Why should someone from Fox Hill be given the responsibility or the contract to clean the park in Millers Heights,
Yes.
which is in Southern Shores?
Understood.
Imagine if the people in Southern Shores had that responsibility. Even when they are off in the evening, if they saw someone dropping something, they say, hey, boy, pick that up, boy, because I got to pick that up tomorrow morning. They would be involved continuously in the upkeep. And it's funny that I talk about cleaning up, because I intended not to say anything negative or anything about anyone on the other side, but I have to note that the Southern Shores that I once knew as Adelaide was so much cleaner than the area that I know now, even though that area happens to have the good fortune of being represented by the Minister of Environment. It's sad, but that is where we are, and that is what I'm hoping to replace. There are a number of things I would want to see happen in Southern Shores, but high on top of that agenda, I would like to engender a spirit of community. That spirit where neighbors know who their neighbors are, where neighbors look out for their neighbors, where neighbors know the neighbor's child, where neighbors know what the neighbors drive. So when they see a white truck moving furniture and knowing that the neighbor doesn't have a white truck, they will become suspicious that maybe someone is stealing from the neighbor.
No question about it.
Neighbors. Who is the neighbor? Who will look out for the neighbor? Are we our neighbor's keeper? That's one of the primary things I'd like to. Yes, we're going to put lights on the road down the Marshall Road. Yes, we're going to put in speed bumps and so people can slow down. But you need that neighborly interaction.
Yeah. Somebody had texted me after you had made the statement about SAC and making the comparison. And I get your point. Your comparison is not so much that because they're paying $1,000 or whatever it is. It's they're involved in the kids. And this person says he wants you to know that there is involvement in some of those schools. This person says, I don't pay $1 to Doris Johnson, but every teacher knows me. My child is on the honor roll every year. Now that's commendable.
Okay, and it is because of that exceptional interaction, and I commend the text writer. My prayer is that she would not be the exception, but she would be the norm.
Yeah, the norm.
And the unfortunate truth is she is not the norm. We need more like her, and there wouldn't be any difference between the results from the private school and the public school. There will be then no need for police officers to be stationed and metal detectors, et cetera, because there would be that standard of responsibility on the part of the parent and the student. And there would be that great relationship where the student knows you can call mommy. The student knows you're going to email mommy. The student knows your results are already on the internet and your mommy can just get it at the tip of her fingers.
Yeah, I know I keep saying this is the final thing, but of course these text messages keep popping up. But this is an interesting one because apparently the Broadcasting Corporation of the Bahamas has declined an application for the young African torchbearers.
Steve, I told you earlier,
convention.
I came here with the intent of being fully positive, and this is a negative thing. This is bad for democracy. This is not where we should be in 2017, where persons are offering to pay for a service that you supply, and you refuse to give it to them based on who they are, and you're making some excuse that, oh, we only cover one political event for a year, but you just covered an entire ratification process for the PLP in addition to their convention. And you say to young people who are the future that you will not allow them to be heard. It is unfortunate. It is unfortunate. It is a sad day in our history.
Well, my producer, Stephen Jr. has told me to tell, excuse me, to tell the torchbearers to come see us. You know, you may not be on TV, but certainly you'll get the word out. So you can call.
I'm going to see some of them tonight.
You can call Stevie J and have it done, and it will be covered without a question.
Well, I thank you, and I will convey that message. Thank you, Stevie J.
Well, listen, I want to conclude here this evening, but Frankie, I really appreciate the fact that you have taken time out, and because I know you were coming, I decided to come off my sick bay of sorts and come out and see you and talk with you, because it has been an interview and a kind of conversation I wanted to have for some time, and you know, it will be a memorable one for me because I said, "Wait, Frankie dragged me to bed and got me to be here just to sit with him and to talk," and it's been very, 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 very informative, and I do appreciate the fact that you came today.
Steve, I appreciate the fact that I was able to drag you out of your bed. I'm humbled by that. I do hope that you feel better in short order. I want to take the time to just thank all of the persons who would have had some impact on my life. I even thank those persons who intended some negative things,
and it worked out
because all of that helped to build my character. I trust and pray that some young person would see something in me and they too would want to make a positive contribution. I'm humbled by the opportunity to be here, and I say to you, whenever there is another such opportunity, I would be happy to come back. I believe that out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh, and I believe I have a big heart, and I'll speak whenever the opportunity presents itself.
Final text message. Hi, Steve. I'm not a supporter of any party, but I know Frankie, and I wish him great success. That's what that person says. Good point to know.
Thank you, text writer.
Yeah.
Let's pray about it.
Yeah. Well, let's go home, Stevie. That's been our show for the day, being brought to you by the folk who make it happen all the time. And certainly that's Mount Tabor Inspiration. Mount Tabor Inspiration, the Ministry of Tourism. Hadji's, your everything store. Majority Rule, Commonwealth Bank, Rocky Farms Nursery, Devania Spices and Manufacturing Limited, Cool Tech, the Air Canoe Experts, Bahamian Durian Beverages, Galena Insurance for comprehensive coverage, Superwash, open 24/7, Bank of the Bahamas, the Bank of Solutions, Super Value, the All Bahamas Supermarkets, the Show Bistro on Nassau Street, Advantage Insurance and Brokers, 61 Collins Avenue, Ron's Electric Motors, Claridge Wolf Road, Executive Printers on Jerome Avenue, the People's Movement. They have a Tuesday night meeting tomorrow night that we will be covering live on the radio, and the McKinney Media Group for the best results in advertisement and public relations. Our show today has been produced by Stephen Arthur McKinney Jr., and we appreciate the fact that we had our guest today, Frankie Campbell. That's what you need to know.
Thank you
His name
very
is
much.
Frankie Campbell.
Thank you very much. Stay tuned. By this time tomorrow, the Free National Movement would have added more to its ratified team, the change team.
I see. So there's more to come.
More to come tonight.
We appreciate it. That's our show for the night. Tomorrow we'll be back here, God's willing. We'll see you tomorrow, and we hope and pray God's strength that we'll be more organized and, I suppose, feeling good so that we can come and do a show all over again. Good night.
As soon as I find the prerequisites,
Yes.
I'll make sure that you do something.
You do it. You do it. You do it.
Thank you, Steve.
Yeah. You're gonna get them. That happens sometimes.